Hello everyone, happy Tuesday. It's time for another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. This is Lena Gersa. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. And today I am so excited to share with you a brand new bundle from the Stampin' Up! 2021-2022 annual catalog called Elegantly Said. Now this bundle is one that initially, when you look at the stamp set, you may kind of go, I don't know, I'm not really feeling it, I'm not too sure. That was my reaction initially. But I gotta tell you, once I started playing with it and saw how awesome the punch that goes with it is, I'm in love with it. So I'm hoping you enjoy the projects that I'm gonna share with you today as much as I do. Now let me just pull up my video here on my iPad to see who's joining me. Okay, this time it's working. I was live a few minutes ago and it was not working, so I'm glad to see some people are watching. Hi Gail, hi Louise, hi Helen, Debbie, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. All right, thanks for sharing, Gail. I really appreciate it. All right, so we are all about Simply Said, or Simply Elegant, the suite, and specifically the bundle called Elegantly Said. Okay, and I'm going to show you the layout in the catalog, and I talk a little bit about the products, and then we're going to get to some projects. Sound good? All right, I'm going to flip the camera, so look away for a second. Hi, Zara. Thanks for joining me today. I'm just going to flip the camera, so look away for a sec, and then I'll let you know when we're good to go, okay? All right, that looks pretty good. I think we are all set. All right. Oh, Bonnie, you got 2 pieces of mail for me. Isn't it amazing how quick the mail can be when it wants to be? I'm glad they arrived. That's awesome. All right, so Simply Elegant is the name of the suite. It's a beautiful suite of products. It includes beautiful DSP and some trim, but sort of the centerpiece of the suite is this awesome bundle. So we have a gorgeous stamp set and a punch. Now I'm going to show you them up close and personal because it's much easier to see them that way. So here we have the Elegantly Said stamp set. This image, this paisley image, I am in love with, and it is absolutely stunning. You're going to see it in action in a few minutes. This border die, also absolutely stunning. Beautiful sentiments in lovely fonts for lots of occasions. And then we have what, in my opinion, is the most versatile punch in the catalog. This punch has so many possibilities, so I'm going to give you some tips for using it. But at first you may look at it and go, that's a really oddly shaped tag. And it is different. When I first looked at it, I was like, not sure about that. But once I started using it and realized how many different possibilities there were, it's now one of my favorite products. So let's set this aside. We are going to, I'm not going to put the punch too far away because I'm going to need it. We are going to get going on our project. So the first one is one I posted earlier today, both on my blog and on social media. It's this one. And what I love making beautiful over-the-top cards. It's just it makes me happy. I love making pretty things. And this is one that I would consider beautiful and over the top, but it's really not difficult. So I'm going to show you how we're going to put this together, but I want to showcase first and foremost this gorgeous embossing folder. So I use this folder on the background of this card, and it is absolutely stunning. This is the first time I use it, so I'm going to hold it up so you can see it. It's called Pretty Flowers. So this is the embossed side, but I, on my card, actually use the deboss side. And look at how gorgeous that is. It's so, so pretty. So the folder is this one, okay? Now, there are a ton of new embossing folders in the catalog, most of which are not part of a suite. So if you don't get to the back of the catalog, to the section that has the embossing folders, you're gonna miss a whole lot of awesomeness. So you're gonna wanna go back there and check this one out. It needs to go on your must order list because it is gorgeous. Okay, all right, so that's what I use for my background. My panel is 5 1/4 by 4 inches. So I just ran it through and embossed it with that gorgeous folder. And then we have a little bit of the beautiful Simply Elegant Designer Series paper. Now, all of this paper, it has gold foiling on it, or has metallic foiling. It's got both gold, silver, and copper. This particular piece is just gold against a white background. Okay, the other side is basic gray and very vanilla, which also would look beautiful on this card. But I wanted to be soft and pretty and pink. So I decided to try adding some color to my DSP. Can you believe that this and this are the same DSP piece? I'm going to show you how we're going to get that awesome saturated color. So I'm going to bring in my Blushing Bride ink pad. Now this piece is cut to 3 by 5. Yes, 3 by 5 inches. I really only need it to be 4 inches to go across my panel, right? It's going to go across the middle here, but I cut it a little bit extra long so I have something to hold on to, and you're going to see why that's important in just a second. All right, so I am taking my Blushing Bride ink, and I'm holding my DSP at one end, and this is going to shock you, but I'm just going to take my ink pad and go like this all over my paper. Now, you may be going, holy cow, she's ruining that DSP, but really, I'm not. This is the quickest, easiest way to get even, beautiful color on your background. So now I'm going to take a tissue and I'm just going to kind of blend that out and get rid of any excess ink. Now, can you see it's a little bit light there? So we're going to come back in. My ink pad needs to be re-inked. It's not all that juicy right now. So I've been doing this technique too much. That's the problem. We'll add a little bit more on this end and we are good to go. All right. So I'm going to just brush that off or wipe that off, and look at how beautiful that is. The gold and Blushing Bride are a beautiful color combination. Okay, so now I have that little bit that's white. I'm going to cut that off anyway. Now, if you wanted to, you certainly could flip your paper around and add ink to this end as well, and then have an extra little scrap that you could use on something else. I personally just will cut it off and probably toss it. So I'm just going to cut this now to 4 inches because that's what I need for my project. Okay, and there I have a beautiful colored piece of designer series paper. Isn't that pretty? All right, so we are going to go ahead and glue that onto our embossed background. All right, so I'm going to grab a little bit of seal. I got a fresh roll in here. I remembered like 30 seconds before I started my live that I needed to put a new refill in there. So that's going to go on centered right about there. Just like that. Okay, and then I have this gorgeous die cut. Now this is die cut using the artistic dies, which is part of the Expressions in Ink suite. And oh my goodness, these dies. I absolutely adore them. They are just so detailed and so stunning when you cut them out. Now I've cut this one out of the rose gold specialty paper. So there is a pack of specialty paper that you also probably missed. Let me show you in the catalog. And let me find it. Give me a sec. It's tucked way down here in the bottom corner of page 135. It is so easy to miss. Like seriously, who is going to notice that? You might have noticed these pretty leaves, but this is the paper that I used. And it is so beautiful. Both the gold and the rose gold come in one pack. And so I've used the rose gold on here, and it works so well with the Blushing Bride. So I'm going to actually take my paper snips and cut this in half, because when I go to put my label on, or my rectangle on, you're going to see that that's going to cover most of it. And I don't want to cover up quite so much of my beautiful die cut. So I'm just going to take and snip this in half, kind of like that. And I'm going to adhere 1/2 in this sort of upper left corner. Now I have got adhesive sheets on the back of this. With this die, it's so detailed, you absolutely want to use those adhesive sheets to glue them down. I would not want to be trying to apply liquid glue to the back of this. It would be an exercise in frustration for sure. So we're going to just pop that on right about there. Just press it into place. And then the other half is going to go down here, kind of like that. Okay. I know Blushing Bride and gold together, Kelly, are absolutely stunning. Such a beautiful combination. So we're going to pop this one on right about here. Okay, I'm not going to worry about poking those little bits out of the center. I kind of like that they're more solid. We're not going to see much of it anyway. Okay, so that is my background. So now I have a very vanilla scalloped rectangle. These are cut using the Stitch So Sweetly dies. We have a new set of scalloped rectangle dies in the catalog called Scallop Contours. However, I like the size of the scallop on this one. It's a little bit smaller, and it just worked better for what I was doing here. So we're going to do a little bit of heat embossing on this one. Now, heat embossing, some people have a sort of love-hate relationship. They love the look of it, but they hate trying to do it. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips. I don't do it often in my videos because I find the noise of the heat tool a little bit annoying on a live, but hopefully you can bear with me for just a couple minutes while we do this. So the key to successful heat embossing is using an embossing buddy. Now, we don't carry this anymore. We did, but not enough people were buying them. So Stampin' Up took them out of the catalog, which is crazy because I don't know how anybody does heat embossing without one. So what this does is it takes away anything that's on the paper that's going to attract the powder to where we don't want it. Okay, so that one is a must-have. Now, I'm not sure if you can probably find one at a craft store. I don't know. I'm hoping Stampin' Up sees reason and brings them back in the next catalog, because I gotta tell you, heat embossing without the embossing buddy is a no-go for me. So I'm going to ink up my stamp that says True Love Stories Last Forever. I'm going to ink it up in Versamark and stamp it centered on my rectangle here. Now, you're not going to be able to see anything just yet. Now we're going to make the magic happen. So I'm going to take and sprinkle my rectangle with some gold embossing powder. Now, right now, this just kind of looks like sand. It's not very pretty at all. But I gotta tell you, heat embossing is positively magical as you watch this powder melt. It is what sold me on stamping when I first started. I had to have all the things to be able to do this at home. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and heat this now. So we're gonna bring in the heat tool. If my cord decides to reach, it's caught. There we go. It was hooked on the edge of my desk. All right, so here we go. It's gonna get noisy, so bear with me for a second. All right, there we go. Isn't that beautiful? It's so shiny and pretty, and honestly, it's just like magic. So there is our embossed label. Now we're gonna add a little touch of color to the corners of our label. I'm bringing back my Blushing Bride ink and my Paisley stamp. So this stamp is just gorgeous. We're only gonna use a little corner of it. You're gonna see its full glory in a few minutes. But for now, we're just gonna stamp just a little corner. I'm actually gonna do literally a corner. I'm going to do a corner up here, just there, and then I'm going to do this little corner down here, like that. Just the littlest hint of the Blushing Bride. So we'll get that out of the way, and then we're going to finish assembling our card. Now, before we put our rectangle on, we need to add some ribbon. So I pulled out this ribbon from the mini catalog. Now, the mini catalog is still in action. We're all kind of distracted with the annual catalog right now. But this beautiful ribbon, this Blushing Bride metallic ribbon, is in the mini catalog, and it works so perfectly on this card. So I'm just going to grab a glue dot here and press one end of my ribbon into the glue dot. I want this to go about, not quite middle. It's going to go a little bit lower than the middle. And then we're going to add another one and adhere our ribbon. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and add our stitched rectangle. We're going to pop it up because why not? Everything's better with dimension, right? So let's get this going on here. We'll put one in the middle and get rid of our backings. And then we're going to pop this on. And again, I want my rectangle to be relatively centered. So it's going to be a little bit, the ribbon's going to kind of run below or towards the bottom. It's not going to go across the middle. Okay. So we're going to adhere this to a thick, very vanilla card base. It's 5.5 by 8.5, scored in the middle at 4 1/4. So we'll fold that in half along our score line. And we're going to pop that on. Now I'm going to actually use and apply my seal to my card base. Now the reason that I'm doing it this way is because sometimes when I'm rushing especially, the seal will pull apart the cardstock fibers when it's embossed, okay? So you have to be a little bit careful when you're applying seal with embossed paper. If you find that that's happening, I would suggest applying your seal to the layer that doesn't have embossing or just going really slowly with it. Okay, so there is our card. So we're going to add just a little bit more bling. We're going to add a bow. Now this ribbon is different, right? It's got two different sides. So if you notice on my card here, I wanted to make sure that I had that same sort of glittery metallic look on all both my loops and my tails. So to do that, we are going to first, with my left hand, I'm actually going to make a ribbon of hope. Okay, it looks like that instead of a loop. Okay, normally when I make a bow, I make two loops like this, right? Two bunny ears. This one, I'm just going to turn it. Okay, I'm still going to make a bunny ear with this hand. I'm going to cross left over right, just as always. Come on. But this time, you're going to see that I have a bow. Whoops, I turned it the wrong way around. Oh, that one didn't work. Let's try that again. Try it again. This ribbon tends to grab because of the metallic, and it can be a little bit temperamental to work with, but let me tell you, the effort is worth it. There we go. That worked better. Okay, so let's adjust our loops and our tails and make sure they are the size that we want. And again, this ribbon does grab when you're pulling it, so you'll find that as you're pulling and adjusting your loops that it's going to want to pull your knot loose. So you just have to be patient and work with it a little bit. And then we're going to trim off our tails. And that is going to go on our card right where the label meets the ribbon. So we'll add a glue dot. And press it into place, and there is our pretty bow. All right, so the last little touch on this one is a bit of bling with some metallic gold pearls. So I'm just going to use my take your pick and add a couple of little pearls here and there. I love these little pearls. Every time there's a new catalog, I worry that they're going to go away. But so far, they've stuck around. All right, so there we go. Super pretty, but not terribly difficult to make. Now, I'm going to show you on the inside. I stamped some of the flower image from the Elegantly Said stamp set. I omitted a sentiment. There is a happy anniversary sentiment in this set. However, this would totally work for a wedding or a bridal shower too. So I decided to kind of leave it for now until an occasion arises that I need a card for, and then I can use an appropriate sentiment on the inside. Okay, so that is number one. So let me just clear some space here. I'm gonna get my embossing powder out of the way before I spill it. And we're gonna bring in number two. So card number two is this one. Actually, you know what? Let me get rid of this messy paper so we don't have to look at all that pink ink. So this is card number two. I posted this one yesterday. It's all about the beautiful designer series paper. So I'm going to pull out my bits and pieces here. I've done some of this ahead of time just because I didn't think you needed to watch me heat emboss twice. So I am starting with a piece of designer series paper. This is the Simply Elegant paper. It's 4 by 5 1/4 inches. Now the back side has this beautiful gold and gray pattern, but I really like this sort of pin tuck pattern, so that's the one that I use for my background. Now I'm going to adhere that to my basic gray card base. It's 4 1/4 by 11, and then I've got it scored in the middle at 5 1/2. So we're gonna fold that in half along our score line, and then we're gonna go ahead and adhere our DSP panel. Come on. Uh-oh. We have a seal down. Hang on, let me grab my other seal. We'll use this one. Here we are. So we'll just add a little bit of seal to this and then center our DSP on our card front. Just like that. Okay. Then I have a piece of gold foil cardstock. Now, funny story, I put this into my greenery embossing folder upside down, and I ended up with a deboss pattern. My emboss pattern is on the back side. But you know what? I actually quite like the deboss pattern, so we're just going to go with it. On my sample, I used embossed, but on this one, it was debossed, and I quite like it, so that's okay. Here, I have another piece of Simply Elegant. I get screwed up. Simply Elegant and Elegantly Said. It'd be much easier if they were all the same name. Another piece of the DSP that is 3 by 4 inches. It's that beautiful metallic. This one is actually 3 1/8 by 4 1/8. When I first designed the card, I was originally thinking I would just layer the two pieces like this, but then realized that I really like the offset look. So I changed my design. I do that all the time. I can't even tell you how many times the final result on a card looks nothing like my initial sort of concept. And that's okay, because that's what creativity is all about, right? So we're going to adhere our gold foil first. I did it a little bit cockeyed to the left, and then we're going to adhere a DSP a little bit cockeyed to the right. Okay, so again, we'll add, come on, seal, work with me. I'm having seal issues today. Don't know what's up with that. Seal is usually a faithful friend. All right, let's pop that one on there. Okay, so there's our background. Now here I have a label. So this label was cut using the Tasteful Tags dies, and I have already gone ahead and stamped and heat embossed in gold the floral image from the stamp set. Okay, just did that ahead of time to save us a little bit of time. And then I'm going to stamp my sentiment in basic gray. Now, this sentiment was giving me major problems on the weekend because it's actually mounted a little bit crooked. So I have to do a couple of test runs to make sure I know how to stamp this straight. Yeah, it's got to go just a little bit off. All right, here we go. This is the moment of truth, you guys. So we're going to just twist it a little bit cockeyed, and look at that. It's actually straight. Sometimes that kind of thing happens, and we just have to adjust ever so slightly. So there is my tag. Now, I have this beautiful finial sort of treatment behind it. So I'm going to show you how to do that with this awesome punch. So this punch will cut just the tag, this shape, but it also can be used to cut decorative ends on your length of paper. So you can create a tag any length you'd like. All right. So I have a couple of tips. First of all, what we need to do is slide this piece in from the top. Now you're going to find that you need to cut your paper just a smidge less than 1 3/4 inches. Okay, this is 1 3/4, so in order for this to slide in comfortably, it's just the teeniest smidge less. The other thing that is really helpful is if you trim off the corners. Okay, that just makes it easier to maneuver it into the punch. So we're just going to slide that in there, and it's going to maneuver in ever so easily, and I'm going to punch. Okay, so now I have that beautiful finial on one end. Then we're going to do the same thing on the other end. So I'm just going to trim off those corners, and I'm going to slide the other end into my punch and do exactly the same thing. Isn't that pretty? So I can use any length of paper to create a tag of any size, which is just fantastic. So I am going to go ahead and layer this behind my label. And isn't that a pretty accent behind the label? So easy. So we're going to just add a little bit of seal to the back of our label and just layer that on there ever so carefully. It's hard to see when I'm not looking down on it. I think that's fairly centered. Okay. And then we are going to add this to the front of our card. But before we do, we are going to add just some little sprigs. Now, these are from the, what are they from? The ephemera set from the Expressions in Ink suite. Okay, I'm loving that suite, but I'm loving how awesome it is with other suites. So these little guys come pre-laser cut, okay, similar to the laser cut paper that we had in last year's catalog. So I am just going to add a little bit of seal to the back side of my label here. And we're going to add one. And we'll tuck this one this way. And you know what? I don't even, well, we'll add this little guy just because he's here. We'll add him to the back. Need a glue dot. We'll just add a little glue dot there. Okay, it's just a pretty little accent that we can add behind our label. So we're going to pop the label up. So we'll add a couple of dimensionals to the label, and then I'm going to add a couple of, whoopsie, minis to the back of my leaves, just to make sure that they don't catch as they're going in and out of the envelope. So we'll get rid of these. Yes, Krista, I know you love this punch. It's a great one. Honestly, it has been lots of fun to get to know it and play with it. All right, so we're going to pop this on. Now I want to make sure this goes on straight. So these two are cockeyed, so I'm going to actually look at this edge of my card to make sure that my tag is actually on straight. Okay, so I'm just kind of looking at this, trying to aim for straight compared to the edge of the card. All right, the last little touches are a quick little bow using some of the silver cord. So this comes in a 2-pack, silver and gold. It's part of the suite, and we are long overdue for simple cord like this. We haven't had anything like this in quite some time. We had some beautiful gold cord last year that was very different and frayed, which was awesome. I love the way it frayed. But for this, if you're trying to make tags or whatnot, having cord that doesn't fray is really, really helpful. So we're just going to trim the ends off of that. It's still a little long. Let's shorten that up a bit. There we go. And I'm just going to take a glue dot and roll it. And then we're just going to kind of tuck it in the corner, bottom corner of this tag here. Just like that. Just a little silver accent against the gold. And then the last touch is another little silver accent. This is not part of the suite, but these things I think work perfectly with the suite. These are silver and clear epoxy shapes, or epoxy elements, I can't remember. They're in the embellishment section of the catalog. Can't remember the names of them right now. I'm sure Louise will help me out eventually. So they have raindrops or teardrops. We have diamonds and we have circles. So I'm using the circles on this one. But just a subtle little hint of silver shimmer there. And that is card number 2. Isn't that pretty? So love it. All right, let's move on to number 3. Get some things out of the way here. Get rid of our ribbon. We are done with that. All right, number 3 is this one. Now I think I'm falling madly in love with Fresh Freesia. It is sort of the color that I've been gravitating to among the in colors. Now, I love Soft Succulent and Evening Evergreen for neutrals, like as backdrops. But Fresh Freesia is kind of becoming my go-to for sort of the focal color. So Fresh Freesia is where it's at on this card. So we're going to put this one together. It's pretty quick and easy. It's just stamping, no heat embossing on this one. So I'm going to start with my basic white panel for my card front. It's 4 by 5¼ inches. Okay. And I have my stamp here. Now I need to clean this because it had Blushing Bride ink on it, and we're going to use it with Fresh Freesia. So we'll just give that a quick clean. And I'm going to bring in my Fresh Freesia ink, and we are going to stamp this paisley pattern in the middle-ish of our panel. Now, you'll notice this is not perfectly centered. It's okay. It doesn't have to be. Okay? At least that's what I told myself. And I'm going with it. I trust myself. So I'm going to stamp my little paisley pattern here once. Look at how pretty that is. Oh, so gorgeous. And then we're going to ink it again, and we're going to flip it and stamp it again. Okay? Now, this is going to overlap slightly, but that's kind of on purpose. It's going to get covered anyway, so it's not a big deal. Okay? Don't worry about this messiness. We're going to hide it. Then we're going to go ahead and add just a little hint of the paisley in the opposite corners, kind of like we did on the tag for our first card. So we'll just add little hints of the paisley there. Okay, I'm actually going to leave that out because we're going to need it in a sec. But you're going to see that when we put our scallop rectangle on, you're going to see, oh, you know what? That's not even peeking out enough. Oh, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to flip it this way. There we go. That's better. And we're going to see just a little bit of that paisley peeking out. Okay. You know what? I don't like that. We're going to flip it over and try that again because I put my paisleys too close together. You guys okay with that? Paper has 2 sides for a reason, and this is why. So we're going to go again. We're going to stamp our paisley, and let's do it again. We won't overlap quite as much this time. Try it there. We'll add a little bit in the corners. There we go. I think that's going to be better. Let's see. Oh yes, much better. All right. So that is our background. Now before we glue it onto our card base, we need to add some ribbon. So this is just a scrap of Fresh Freesia ribbon I had from the tail end of a roll. So I'm going to add a glue dot. It's going to go again about 2/3 of the way down the panel. It's not going to go right across the middle. Thank you, Silver and Clear Epoxy Essentials. See, I knew it, Louise. You would help me out. You are a lifesaver. All right, so there we go. There's our ribbon. Now we're ready to go ahead and put that onto our card base. So here I have a piece of fresh Freesia cardstock. It's 5.5 by 8.5, scored in the middle at 4.25. So let's fold that in half along our score line. And then we're going to go ahead and glue our stamped panel onto the front of the card. So it's going to go on just like that. Okay, and then our rectangle is going to go on here. However, we are going to add some magic to it. So here I have a little piece of the Fresh Freesia Shimmer Vellum, and oh my goodness, you guys, this stuff is so, it's like somebody took Wink of Stella and just dumped it all over. It's so beautiful and shimmery. And then I embossed it using that Pretty Flowers embossing folder, and wow, it is so, so pretty. Okay, so now I've cut this so that it will fit on my scalloped rectangle. Okay, now here's the thing. When we're working with vellum, we have to get a little bit sneaky about how we apply our adhesive, right? Because the adhesive will show through the vellum. It's translucent. So I found the best way to adhere vellum is to use our adhesive sheets. Now this is some of the old style sheet that we used to carry. Our new ones are exactly the same. So we're going to go ahead and just apply some of that adhesive to the center of our rectangle. Okay, and then I'm going to peel that backing piece off, if I can get it. There we go. Okay, so that's now sticky. When I adhere my vellum or lay my vellum over top and stick it down, you're not going to see that adhesive. Okay, so adhesive sheets are not only awesome for detailed die cuts, but they are awesome for adhering vellum as well. Okay, so you need to get some if you don't have any. Telling you now. All right, so we're going to go ahead and add that beautiful embossed vellum layer. We're going to add some dimensionals. I have very sticky fingers. That adhesive sheet stuff is super sticky when it gets on your fingers. It doesn't want to go away. All right. Yes, the adhesive sheets are exactly the same, Louise. I have little scraps of the old ones, but I'm using the new ones for the most part. That was just a little scrap that I had kicking around that I wanted to use up. So totally works. And they are just the same. All right, so there we go. There's our beautiful vellum focal image. So then I've already stamped and fussy cut part of the floral image in Fresh Freesia, but we're going to do it again on white. So I'm stamping in Fresh Freesia on white cardstock. So we'll just stamp that, okay? And what a difference, right, between stamping on the Fresh Freesia and on the white. But I love the contrast that gives. So I'm just going to really quickly cut this out. Now, we don't have to worry too much about fussy cutting the stem because it's going to get hidden behind our sentiment. So I'm not going to really worry about being super detailed there. But I am just going to kind of come around the leaf and the petals. Now, just a word of advice, when you're trying to cut this out, just kind of cut around those little dots, the little sort of sprig there. They're kind of a pain in the neck to fussy cut. I mean, I suppose I could if I really wanted to take the time, but honestly, don't miss them when I cut them off. So they're gone. So we're just going to come around here and trim the rest of this out. Again, when we're fussy cutting, we want to move our paper more than our scissors. And we want to make sure we have really nice sharp scissors. So our paper snips are the best for fussy cutting, if you ask me. I've tried cutting with other scissors and you don't get the same results, let me tell you. You also want to make sure your snips are sharp. These are not the sharpest of snips. They have seen better days, these ones, but okay. So I'm not worried about this part down here because it's going to get hidden, okay? All right, so let's get rid of our scraps here. And we're going to be layering the two flowers, one on top of the other, and then our sentiment is going to go on there like that, okay? So we don't see any of the messiness, no problem at all. But we are going to stamp a sentiment first. So I'm going to pull in, oh, did I grab the wrong one? I did. Where's my thank you? There it is. All right, so we're going to stamp thank you on this little bitty label. This is die cut using the messages die, which is the one that cuts all those labels all at once. And I am stamping in Smoky Slate ink, just centered on my little label there. And then we are going to go ahead and layer our flowers. So I'm going to put just a little bit of seal on the darker flowers, layer the lighter on top, and then I'm going to add another little bit of seal and layer my sentiment, just like that. Okay, super easy. And then that is going to go on the front of my card. I'm going to put some seal on the part that is going to overlap the vellum, and then I'm going to take a dimensional and tuck it in right close to my rectangle there, and that's just going to catch the part that sort of hangs off the edge and keep it from getting crushed. Okay, last touch is to add a little bow. So I still have a little bit of scrap ribbon here, so we're going to tie a bow. This is the Fresh Freesia in color ribbon. Best in color ribbon we have had, I think, ever since I've been a demonstrator in almost 11 years. I love this ribbon. It's so shimmery, super forgiving, easy to tie. It's just beautiful. I've gone through lots of it already. So we'll trim off our tails and add a glue dot to the knot of our bow. And then that is going to get tucked in right next to our scallop rectangle. And then the last little bit of bling is to add some of our in color gems. Now these are currently not orderable. They're due in at the end of the month. They are so pretty and iridescent and just, oh, yummy, yummy, yummy. And they match perfectly. And coordination is where it's at with Stampin' Up, right? So there we go. There is our pretty, pretty, pretty thank you card. All right, I'm just cleaning up my mess here a little bit so I can bring all the projects back. So there's 1, 2, and 3. All right, so those are our projects for today. Now I want to show you the projects for my brand new online class that just launched today. So all of the ordering information for this is posted at the top of my page here. So it's pinned at the top, so you should be able to find it. So I will show you the projects and then I'll tell you a little bit more. So this class includes 6 cards featuring products from the Simply Elegant suite. Okay, so we start with a pretty simple thank you card. Okay. And then another beautiful wedding or anniversary card. This one could be anything. It's just all the things you do are simply amazing. Could be thank you, could be whatever. With the copper foil. Oh, so pretty. Here's another one. This uses that same direct to paper technique with the ink. Okay. Now, just so, well, I'll tell you afterwards, but you don't have to have all of these ink colors. I'll explain in a minute. Okay, so there's that one. And then same paper, different color. This is a navy. So birthday card. This is just sort of a card of support or thanks. And then finally a Christmas card. Look at how pretty. So this is that same paper that we used on the first card, but this time I used Evening Evergreen on the background. And oh, so yummy for a Christmas card. So those are the 6 projects you get for free included in the class. The class is free with a $60 order. There is a host code that you need to use when you are placing your online order so that I know you want this class. And there's also a list of the items that you need or products that you need to complete it. Essentially, it's just a couple shades of ink. And optional is the heat embossing. So you can totally make all of these cards just stamped rather than heat embossed if you don't have heat embossing tools or the powders and whatnot. You can totally just do it in regular ink. Okay, so that is my new online class. Now, there's a really tight turnaround for this one. The ordering deadline for this is next Tuesday. I will remind you in my video next Tuesday, and then it's going to close at midnight on Tuesday. Okay, so just 1 week to take advantage of this one. And if you have any questions, by all means, send me a message and I will try to answer them. And away we go. All right. Okay, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me today. I will see you next week for another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. Bye for now.